I think the ultimate goal of a parent is to have a happy child and then a happy adult. And I think one of the strongest tools that we can give our children is the tool of change, adaptation, and the fact that if something doesn't make you happy, you can walk away from it.
Children are born through you, but ultimately they are not yours.
What if the kids, for no reason, they still don't accept the partner?
Mummy, I don't like your new partner.
I'm sure many mothers will relate to this, the sense of shame and guilt, or sometimes maybe you leave your kids with someone to do your own stuff or to spend time with your partner, because at the end of the day, your partner knows you through kids from day one.
Hello and welcome to the She Word Mums, conversations that mums rarely have, but really should. I am your host, Nerissa Massa. Today, we wanted to shine a light on blended families. A blended family is formed when two partners unite, bringing children from previous marriage or relationships into a new household. With increasing rates of separation and divorce in Malta and around the world, the number of blended families has increased in Malta in recent years. There is no official census data on blended families, but research shows that 53% of people who were divorced and 37% of people who were separated are now in new relationships. Blended families are somewhat different to traditional family units in that they have different needs and they face different challenges. There are lots of emotions, there are lots of learning curves, unexpected moments of joy, and sometimes a bit of chaos. And to honor this topic, I have three incredibly brave and amazing mums who are sitting down with me to share their incredible experiences. So I'm going to start off with Steph, who is on my right. Hello, Steph Zammit, Stephanie Zammit. Do people call you Steph?
Steph, everyone calls me Steph.
You're a mother, obviously, previously Miss World Malta, a High Rocks
like 100 years ago.
A High Rocks competitor and not a new face to the She Word. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
My next guest, who is opposite me, is also not a newbie to the She Word. She is Sefora. Most people know her as Diego and Us. She's a content creator on social media. I'm going to mention this, recent winner of the Content Creator Award at the Love in Malta Awards, and mum to almost 4.
Yes.
One is still on the way. Sephora, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And last but not least, I did say I had a bit of a fangirl moment, is Pauline Agius. She is a newbie to the She Word, but definitely not a newbie if you have ever watched Maltese television. Pauline is, I'm going to have to read this, TV presenter, TV producer, media professional, content creator, and a podcast host. And this, if all of that was enough, she's also mum to 2 boys. Welcome
And a
to
dog.
And a dog. Oh my God, a dog. That's
part of the family,
Of course, because my children have been asking for a dog and I say, I keep you guys alive. I don't have time for a dog. Welcome to the show. Pauline, what have I missed? Tell us a little bit more about you that maybe people might not know.
Yes, I mean, people obviously follow me and know more or less about what I do. But yes, this dog thing is a new thing for me. A new thing now. It's been 3 years. And talk about that kind of blending a dog into a family. I've never had a pet in my life.
Okay, not
So
even when you were
Not
young.
even growing up. And out of all the animals that I could have gotten, I got a dog.
What kind of dog?
I have a golden retriever.
Oh my God, not even a
Not even a swat. Yes, and everyone was. So I believe that this was the biggest surprise I actually gave my family. No one believed I'm going to get a dog. Everyone knows how I like cleaning and everyone spotless at home. And how are you going to get a dog? He's going to run around and all his hair and fur and all that. But somehow we manage. And it has been, I think, the biggest blessing in the past few years that I have been lucky to experience together with my 2 boys, because he means the world to them. And obviously, I learn a lot from this experience. I think adopting this dog has been a learning curve in itself. Because when you see the blend of how children interact with a new member in the family, and I think this sets off the topic actually for the day. Because I never imagined it would happen, but the way it happens and the beauty of how it happens. And again, it's challenges because we have to walk the dog, we have responsibility. He's a big size dog, he needs his training. He has his play dates.
Oh my God. Another thing to factor into the
Yes,
calendar.
so sometimes I get confused whether I got another child or another.
Dog.
But let's say he's a member of the family, and yes, and everyone who is a pet owner would tell you they are part of the family and they have their needs as every other individual member of the family.
For sure.
So yes, it's been a very nice learning curve.
That's good that you describe it as nice. I'm not there. I'm not brave enough to go there yet. Sefora, is there anything I have missed about you?
No, not really. I don't think so. Having 3 kids, almost 4 now, I think that sums up perfectly my whole life because all
There's
my
no
life,
space for a pet.
Nothing else.
She has a pet. She has
I
a dog.
had a pet. He's not with us anymore.
Okay. But not
We
for now.
miss him, but no, I'm not
for
getting
now.
another one for sure.
So you have, so your oldest child, Diego, is how old?
He's going to be 11.
And then you've got 2 under...
2
Two?
under 2.
Well,
Julia, 2 years, 3 months. Luca, he's almost 11 months. And another baby due in 8 weeks.
I am in awe. I have no words.
So that's why I'm telling you I have no space for anything else.
You won't have for a while, probably.
Steph, what have I missed about you? Tell us a little bit more.
Basically, I have 2 girls. The youngest is autistic, so that's pretty much has taken most of the space in my life. I would love to get a pet. Golden retrievers are amazing. They're also very good with special needs children. In fact, so yes, but I'm a little far from it. I might get. I would love
encourage
to.
you.
I would love to. I
would
need to
encourage
upsize
you.
the house also because. So yes, I would love that. Especially golden retrievers are very.
Yes,
So
there's
it
a reason
gives me hope
behind obviously me choosing that particular breed because obviously of how good they are with kids, and they're very responsive. So they're very even from the slightest emotion they
They are
can
guide
get.
dogs also. In fact,
They are used as service dogs and
Exactly.
guide dogs, so they are fantastic. So it's again, I had to read about this, search about this, but they're just awesome, and they can get the emotions of the children. Even if they're sad, they will just the dog you would see would go exactly next to them, and it's impressive to see. It's impressive.
Wow.
So maybe the next time Steph will be here, she'll say, and now
I'd
have a
love
dog.
that.
Listen, I'm going to dive straight into the topic because since starting the She Word Mums, this has always been one of the topics I wanted to cover. But equally, I know it's a very sensitive topic, it's a very delicate topic, and maybe one we don't really talk about as much as we should. But at the same time, it's something which is becoming more relevant. So if you have to see Malta 50 years ago, maybe the topic of blended families was not something which was relevant, or maybe it was frowned upon by some people. But nowadays, it's almost like the elephant in the room. You know, let's have a discussion about it. Let's talk about what it's like for a mum to be going through this, because there's often a lot of concentration, and rightly so, on the kids. But as a mum, you know, do you find this stigma still around blended families in Malta? Is it easy to talk about it? Do you still find it hard? Do you still find judgment?
I feel sometimes I judge myself in the sense that to have a blended family, it means you have to start a new relationship. Now imagine you started your first relationship before you having the kids, just the 2 of you, right? So it was quite easy to start a new relationship. When you start a new relationship with having 2 kids, you have 2 kids and a new relationship.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to balance a new relationship, cultivate the relationship, make sure it's a healthy relationship, and also juggling 2 kids. And obviously you find yourself judging yourself sometimes to take some space for yourself and your partner. And obviously you feel like people are judging you for sometimes maybe taking some time for yourself and for the relationship. So yes, I judge myself sometimes also, I'm sure many mothers will relate to this, the sense of shame and guilt for sometimes maybe you leave your kids with someone to do your own stuff or to spend time with your partner, because at the end of the day, your partner knows you with 2 kids from day one.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's judgment in general, but yes, I don't think we're exactly open-minded to that point yet, where society helps you, feel good about having a relationship and 2 kids and blending.
I see the beauty of your partner knowing you with 2 kids.
For sure.
Okay.
Because that means obviously he knows the package. He knows it's there. So I believe that the way he would have fallen in love with you is in that way. And I see that as a very positive thing. Because whereas if you are in a relationship with no children and you started off, they know you as alone and single and it's just you, like maybe careless a bit and relaxed, and they know that part of it. And not all men can handle what a woman brings to the table. And in their own right, some women are very strong and they can come out very strong, even the fact that they are carrying these 2 children as well. And not all men can handle the strength of a woman, I believe.
I
So
agree.
when having 2 children and a person meets you at that stage of your life and they can handle you with the children and with what comes to that, I see that as strength. And obviously I'm in awe of men who can handle that.
Yeah.
I think what scared me the most was that I when I met David, I was in a very rough patch in my life. So I needed to protect myself, but I needed to protect my child as well. So apart from making sure that you don't get hurt, you have to make sure also that your child doesn't get attached to this person and then everything ends once again and they have to experience another loss. So that was a huge responsibility, a huge responsibility that you have to be responsible for your feelings and your child's feelings. And something else that much bothers me, I felt that we didn't have the time alone together. We never went abroad alone. We never went for a weekend break alone together. We never had that alone time. But seeing the way David cared and loved Diego, that was what made me fall in love with him, I think. I think that
How
was the
beautiful.
main
That's
thing.
so true.
You have like two contrasts together that one thing is contrasting the other. Like there is beauty in it and there is a lot of responsibility in it as well.
I really want to. You both said some beautiful things. I think, Pauline, I'm just going to touch back on what you said. How you're in awe of men who love women with strength. I also think that's something. There's a development of the woman, isn't there, when she becomes a mum? Can you recognize yourself from your pre-kids days? Probably not so much, but the strength and resilience you build once you become a mother. And sometimes that causes friction in the relationship as well, because your husband, if you're still with the same partner, is looking at a different person, because you become this mama bear, this protector, this, which, I went through it. I barely recognized myself in how I kind of grew. So you almost then found a partner who saw the new Pauline as a mother, not just as a mother, not Pauline the mom, but Pauline who gained this strength and this resilience as a result
Exactly.
of being the mother, which I think is so beautiful. And perhaps it's also worth thinking about it from couples who are still together, in that you need to rediscover your new selves once you become parents, because everyone changes. But then to touch on Sefora's point, which leads me to my next point, is obviously when you meet someone, you go on a date, you'll text your friends. Sometimes you'll rely on their opinion. Shall I go on a second date? Is he nice? He did this. Does this give me the ick? I don't like him. Dump. When you're with kids, you have limited time, so you need to make that time count, where you're trying to get to know him in the limited time you have with no kids. You need to make sure he fits into your life, because you don't really have any space to make changes. How long did it take you, or did you have the option to get to know your partner without the kids before introducing the kids? And when were you then ready to bring the kids into the picture? And maybe this says a lot also about the blended families. Does your partner have kids of their own? And so was that even trickier?
This blend is reminding me, it's like we're baking a cake or something, which is interesting, because even the fact, I do understand that as human beings, we have to give a title to something, because us categorizing something gives us a perspective. Sometimes I try to move away from it, because we are categorizing too many things. And while it helps to know this is tea and this is water, but at the end of the day, they're both drinks.
Yes.
They're both non-alcoholic drinks, and they're both good. They have their own benefits, but it's just sometimes I need to just establish that this is tea and this is water. And while I get that, sometimes we tend to do it a bit too much. What I experienced with my own what I would call, I think, is situation of how things were. I did have my own time to get to know the person alone without the kids, which I believe, yes, is important, but is also equally important how the kids were introduced to the idea. First of all, many a time we underestimate how intelligent they are in their own right of assessing certain things. And sometimes we approach things even by identifying. So we would be, if someone is watching us and listening and saying, what are they saying? If we are approaching the situation by, hello, this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend. Sometimes we have to give a title, we have to approach. I let them discover that on their own.
Okay.
So obviously I was lucky enough that the way they were introduced, it was in a group scenario. So they got to know the person before actually identifying the role. And that's beautiful.
Yes.
Because when you introduce, if I walk in here and I would say, listen, Ben and Nate, who are my children, this is Nerissa, she is the host of the show. If I just don't say a word and I say, Mommy's going to record the program and you're going to listen and watch this podcast. Once we finish this podcast, they're going to say, Mommy, Nerissa was the host because we could tell that she was asking you the question.
But they got to that conclusion themselves.
Why not let them to get to that conclusion and let them explore this idea? Because something beautiful about blended families, if you want to give it a title, is that you get to choose. And they get to choose as well. We don't choose our parents. We don't choose our siblings. We don't choose our children. But when it comes to this reality, there is a choice. And everyone should have the freedom of doing their choice. I am not going to force my children to like you, Nerissa. Maybe we'll go out of here. They had the responsibility to sit and wait for me, for example, till I finish doing what I'm doing. But then we can walk away and they can say, Ma, I like Nerissa, she's nice. But they could say, Mommy, you know what? I don't want to meet Nerissa again. I don't like her. And it's fine.
Yeah.
Because they have a right of choice in their own right as children.
Yeah.
And we have to give this choice, because here we're doing choices. Like I have a choice, they have a choice. And sometimes we see it as in a way that we're forcing them into something. They have to like this, they have to do that. And I don't agree with that. And I like to give their freedom.
Take care and indulge in the liberation of smooth, hair-free skin. Browns, empowering wellness through its excellence in laser hair removal.
Periods are part of the game, but they don't have to throw you off your game. Try new Always Platinum for up to 100% leak protection, faster absorption, dry feel, and it's more cushiony, so you can focus on your game. It's a new period, always.
it's very interesting what you said, that you gave your kids the choice, which I think is like such a beautiful way of looking at it. But if I had to flip it on its head, if they had to say to you, Mommy, I don't like your new partner,
What
would
do
you
do?
would you have given, do you feel like it was choosing your new partner, was it almost the choice of the three of you to accept him into your life?
I wouldn't say the choice of the three of us. And this, interesting what you're saying about the choice, comes up many times. It could be where we're going out. It could be then you would come into conflict, but where they want to go or where we want to go. So this choice comes a lot up. And when you talk about how many members there are,
Yes.
I mean,
Now the dog.
Exactly. Now you want, even with him. So now you understand, yes, there is a choice. Having a choice, and that's why I say this has been a learning curve, and there's a lot of space for growth in realities like this, because having a choice doesn't mean that we're going to go by what you choose.
Okay.
So we can discuss a choice here, but that doesn't mean if you're giving us three as your guest a choice, it means that we're going to go with my choice.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll go with what Sefora chooses. So we are brought up in this mentality because I have a right of a choice, but now everyone's going to do what I'm going to say. And that's not a choice. So you have the choice. It doesn't mean that we're going to do what you say.
Exercise it.
And this is very important when it comes to children, because I might be discussing with them what they're going to cook, what we're going to eat, where we're going to go out, where we're going to go abroad. But say, for example, I say, listen, children, I'm thinking of a vacation. Where would you like to go? And one of them says, Hawaii or Bahamas. I would say, fine, pack your bags. We're going right where you choose. I would explore the idea. Why do you want to go there? There is the sea, there is this. Okay, maybe we can go to Greece. They even have sea. And then you explore why they go to that conclusion.
Yeah.
So yes, we need to involve the children, not because they are going to choose for us or we are going to go by their choice, but to see the perspective they're bringing. Many a time, there is a reason behind how they're choosing and what they're choosing, and that's to be explored, not to give them the right to choose.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, had they come up to you initially and said, I don't like the partner you chose, I mean, that is a conversation you would want to have. Why? What vibes did they give you? What is it you don't like?
And I would have gotten that heads up, as I said, before them understanding that there is a
That is your
relationship,
partner.
because they got to know him in a different light. And that's also very interesting, because some children might be growing up in these realities where they preserve and protect parenthood. So when a child doesn't like a partner, it's not necessarily because of that partner, because that person is not a nice person. It could be because they are protecting the idea of their parents being together.
Yes.
Also, yeah.
Yes.
And unless you see this through, like I had the opportunity to see it through, you wouldn't know why they are deciding so. So that is why you need to be super careful and cautious, because then the conclusion they're getting to might not even be their own. It might be coming from somewhere else, because they would, for example, so wish that their parents, even though they have never experienced them being together, but they would wish that their mother and father are together so much that they would just not like the partner for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
So the introduction is a topic on its own, I would
Yes.
say.
And I think even the age matters. ġifiri, if there is enough kids involved who are still little, it's one matter. If they are already adults, it's another matter. So I think it's something you need to discuss all together. And if there is the opportunity to sit down, even if you have adult kids, and sit down and talk about it, isma, what do you think? How are you feeling about this? But then it's a bit tricky as well, because what if the kids, for no reason, they still don't accept the partner? What do you do in that case?
So have you been lucky in that respect?
What Pauline said, maybe I've done a bit more indirectly, in the sense when you meet your partner and eventually introduce him to the kids, you test the waters, you see what's happening. My daughter, my eldest one, she She fell in love with him straight away. And that was maybe, and I did not introduce him as a partner, was more like a friend, a friend is coming with us, we're going out. And when I saw how she responded to him, obviously it gave me the courage, the hope that this can go forward, kind of thing. And as we went along, it became very clear that she was getting very attached to him. Now he lives with us. I feel like he adopted us more than we adopted him, because he literally he helps me raise them, basically. He's a very good figure for them. I wouldn't say a parent figure, but yes. I mean, he spends almost as much time with them as me. Or, of course, I still have time with them separately sometimes because it's healthy, But I did it kind of gradually. And when I saw the response, especially also my youngest daughter, I mean, it must be a thing of having a male presence, because she responds to him almost. Sometimes I feel like she loves him more than me, because she adores him. And she literally... he massages her feet, kind of thing.
Why wouldn't you adore him if he massages your feet?
Because it's a very sweet relationship, but I did it gradually. And as I go along, sometimes even when he's not there, I check into my eldest daughter. Do you miss Alex? Yeah. So just to gauge into what's,
Yeah.
Yes, Ma. I mean,
I think when something feels good, it comes
that's
naturally.
exactly, yes. Yes,
For
that's very
example,
true.
in my case, David comes from a blended family himself. So he could understand what my son was feeling, and he could give him what he received from the father that raised him.
Wow.
So it's like history repeating itself, and he didn't force things with my son. Things came so naturally. It was so natural. I don't think I had to think too much about it. I think it was more the beginning that was a bit tricky. Is he the right guy for me to introduce Diego to him, for example? Or when we started living together, am I doing the right thing? I think it's the beginning. It's the worst part of it.
How was it in the beginning? You said, so you live with, obviously, your now husband.
No,
not husband, not yet,
he
sorry.
Still
but
has to wake up.
Sorry.
From
hint,
the
hint.
dream. No.
Put a ring on it. No, but okay, with your partner.
No rush. Our third baby.
I think the commitment is very evident.
Yes.
So you live. How was it in the early days? You are. I don't want to say, but when you're living in the same household, you're kind of always in each other's faces, and you need to learn how to live with someone new and change the dynamics of maybe how you were doing them with your ex-partner, then how you were doing them alone with the kids, and now bringing someone else. How challenging are those early days? And then do you kind of settle into it?
I didn't have, obviously, that challenge. I still don't, because we live in two separate households. So I live with my kids, so that's very much our space, and the dog.
Can't forget the dog.
We can't forget him.
You can count him with the kids.
We can count him with the kids. So I live with them, and obviously that is our space. And my partner has his own household. So there are two different households. So I don't have that challenge. And it's a choice, again, that I made. And I think it reaps its benefits as well. Being obviously at an age where they're still much very young, they still need a lot out of me. We have our own lifestyle. So in the case of my children, because they're young, they know more the reality of living in a household with their mother than they know any other reality. So this is what they know. So in their lifespan so far, this is the longest reality they had, living with their mother. So I still feel that in that way and manner, there is that protection. Okay, we do have obviously our vacations or sleepovers or this and that, but this also brings the idea, even when Sefora was talking about David's background, that when you go back in our past, culturally, we were very much blended. So my father, for example, comes from a family of 10 children. And there was very much this reality of everyone living close to each other. And there's the aunt, and there's the uncle, and there's the neighbor. And no one used to mind, and your neighbor is watching your kids. And our families, culturally, were very much blended. I remember in my childhood, we had friends who lived in UK, who I used to call aunties and uncles.
Yes.
And they weren't blood related to me, but like they've known me for all my life since I was born, and we grew up calling them auntie this and uncle that. So the blend is also something that as a culture we've always had. It's now that we decide to maybe do a certain stigma or an uncomfortable topic because we live it. I see this very much in my family. So the way I have my family supporting me and involved in my life nowadays is nothing compared to how I used to live when my children were born. I mean, I was very much confined in my space, a controlled environment. I couldn't have the support of the people I needed. So nowadays, when I see how beautiful it is, that my children's kids come over. So even there's a different blend within its own family. So it's also how we choose to live.
Yeah.
Other than what we call this living type. Some people choose to live with a partner, some people choose not to.
Yeah.
So
What works for you?
what works for you? What works for you and what works for the children when there are the children?
Yeah.
They have to be given priority.
Absolutely.
They have
Sometimes
to.
what works for you at the beginning, it ends up maybe not working for you along the way. For example, we realize sometimes, because obviously a household with 2 kids, sometimes it can be loud. An autistic child is also louder than Alex maybe find along the way, we realize that sometimes he needs his space. Why? Because he didn't choose from the start to have 2 kids. Okay, I mean, the kids are mine at the end of the day. No matter how much he helps me, how much he loves them, they're not his, and I'm not saying that in the sense of not his, but they're my children. So they're my responsibility at the end of the day. And he can choose to sometimes be away from them. Why? Because it's healthy for him. And I understand that now, maybe more than before, more than the initial days, that sometimes in order for him to give us his best, sometimes he needs his time. So there are days, for example, where he doesn't sleep at home. And I think it's very important. And in fact, I follow many pages on social media with stepfathers, because he's like a stepfather to my kids. And many stepfathers and many stepmoms, in fact, they do this because sometimes you need your space. Even as a mom, we need our space.
Absolutely. I was just
Imagine
going to say
as a
that.
stepfather who never actually chose this, but he chose this along the way because he loves me and now he loves them. It doesn't mean it's easy. So
I cannot relate.
You're right.
I cannot
doesn't
relate
mean mine
because
is- exactly.
even David, when he speaks, for example, he doesn't refer to Diego as her son. He says our son. And that is something I love when I hear him saying our son. It's not his biological son, but he is raising him. He's very much involved in his life. He drives him here, he takes him there. If we have a Parents' Day, he's present. If we have a Christmas concert, he's present. So I think the title of stepdad really suits him well because he did step up for him. And I feel that is something which at first, when in the beginning of the relationship, I couldn't picture us as a family. I couldn't. My mind just, I couldn't get the hang of it. He's not the father. How are we going to be a family? If I don't have kids from him, I can never feel that we are a family. It's just me and my son and him. But then, again, as I said, it all came so naturally that even, for example, when we had our own kids, our biological kids, he doesn't distinguish from Diego to the other
That was a question
kids.
I was going to ask. Did you have any fear of
The
whether
fear
David
is
was going to
there.
look, then once he has his own biological child in the same house, whether there would be
Emma, not because he's not his biological father. Sometimes Diego brings this up because he says he loves Julia more than me, or he doesn't give Julia a punishment. And I tell him, listen, you are 11 years old. She is 2 years old. When you have another baby, when you already have a son, and then you have another baby, you know how careful you have to be that you don't give the
I get it from my
attention to
children.
the baby.
You gave her as
Yes, they do it
So
to me as
I
well.
try to make him understand that, listen, your feelings are very valid, but it's not because he's not your dad, he's not your
Yes.
real dad. It's because they are babies. They still need a lot more attention than you do. For example, if you are 11 years old and after finishing dinner, instead of going in the sink and wash your hands, you wipe your hands off with your t-shirt, I have to tell you, listen, is this what we do?
No.
From a 2-year-old, I expect it. So there's the age gap. It's not because Julia
you're not
is
comparing
her
like with
biological father and look, and he's not yours. So that was very tricky as well, to make this child understand that after all he's a child. That Isma, that's not the reason. It's not because he's not your biological dad. It's because you are, for example, 11 and she's 2 and Luca is 1. So we have to treat you differently. It's the dynamic to treat you differently in some circumstances, not.
And it's the character of the child.
Yes, as well.
I mean, we spoke. We have a very feisty 2-year-old. So what works with one doesn't work with the other. But we're on the topic of kind of parenting styles. And again, everyone has their own style of parenting. And so then you kind of bring someone else into the picture. And a number of questions crop up. You know, what role will the other person play? Because if my children technically already have a mother and a father, what role is the partner going to play? Because they don't want to step on someone's toes and become the role of dad because they already have one, but equally they are a part of their lives. Is that difficult to navigate? And do the kids ask questions? How do you deal? I mean, Sefora said, you know, David stepped up to the role of stepdad and he kind of took on that role and defined it and made it his own, which is brilliant. But I'm sure it was a bit tricky at first to make sure that maybe as Diego's getting a bit older, he can say, I have a dad, but David is my stepdad.
He knows.
But
he's
as
aware.
kids are young, how do you navigate different roles that everyone is playing? Because they're all influential people in their lives, ultimately.
That's it. I am very much into this yours, mine, ours. I am very careful with it because unfortunately, and this is also comes from mentality, mine, yours, gives a certain pretentious right, which I don't like at all. So one of, I think, the hard lessons you learn about children, when you say my children, one of the hardest pills I had to swallow as a parent, I would say, is that children, as a mother, that children are born through you, but ultimately they are not yours. And the first time that I had to face that in parenthood, in my motherhood, it takes time to sink in. Today, I understand it better because unfortunately, the way we say mine and yours, my wife, my husband, my children, the way we do it, it doesn't necessarily have to be like that, but the way we do it gives a certain pretentious right of control. And I believe that as a society, we have a lot of work to do there. Because when you say mine, it automatically, I don't know why this happens, but it entitles you to certain control. So that is why we're discussing this topic. Is he my child? Can I biologically mine, not mine? Can I correct him? Do I not have to say anything because he's not mine and technically... That is why we are in this topic, because there is this definition.
It's like you have to live on edge
Exactly.
all the time.
Point blank, I was asked this question by the son of my partner, who is 14, but with an 18-year-old brain. And he said, why do you have to care for us? Like, do you don't have to do things for us if we're not your children? I told him, you're right. I don't have to. I choose to. Because I care about you. And not because of who you are, not because you're the son of this and the son and the daughter of that. I choose to care for you. So if a friend of mine, if Sefora would let her daughter be with me and play with my children, I choose to care for Sefora's children. I am doing that choice. And it's not because it's mine, yours, his, hers. You have parents, you have your mother, you have your father. They are the ones responsible to take decisions for you, but I choose to care for you. And I told him, the truth about this reality is that you learn that even what I call my children are not my children. They are born through me, but that doesn't make them mine.
That is
because
so
mine
hard.
entitles.
Yes.
Mine gives a certain element of entitlement. And that is why we battle these situations then.
But this is so hard, especially as a mummy, to be able to understand. Because, look, you are absolutely right. They are who they are, and they are...
I think in the introduction you skipped psychologist.
But it's true. But it's a
born
very hard
through
pill
you.
to swallow.
They're not yours.
They're not yours.
So when you
It's a
think
very deep
about
thought.
it,
Yes, because ultimately
It took me years.
your partner,
But it's true.
your
And our
partner's-
job is to literally let them go.
Exactly.
Yes.
And if you don't,
And why
you're not
do you
doing them any
think-
justice. You
And
know?
why do you think we call parenthood the highest form of love?
It is. It's
Because you are
Selfless
caring
in that
so
sense.
much, it's selfless.
For
you are
someone
giving life to
will
someone
literally
else.
one day leave you. And that's the whole point of it.
and that's
to
what makes it
leave you.
successful.
They
If
have
they
to
leave you-
If they don't leave you, you've did something wrong, you know? If they don't leave the nest.
So can you look, even saying
Oh,
it
the
gives me
yes.
goosebumps because I would dare say I haven't got there yet.
So it's
a
difficult.
journey.
It's a process for
But
sure.
you have to get
But
to
the way
point.
you
They
say
are-
it, then that for me means that your partner is another person who chooses to care for your children.
Exactly, for sure.
Just like you are choosing to care for them, you have the responsibility because you birthed them and, under the state and everything, they are yours. But in the same way that you are choosing to care for them, your partner plays that role.
And we don't have common children like Sefora. Even, again, I say, not to mention it, but even that's why I said with the dog, we learn so much. Because sometimes I would say, we're not going here, but you know what? The dog is my responsibility. Let me see what I'm going to do. He says, no, the dog is our responsibility. So if we're going abroad and we need the dog to come, and this happened, we're going to choose places that the dog can join. He won't say, okay, you deal with it. Now you see what you're going to do. You got that dog. So he goes, no, the dog is our responsibility and we're going to choose the places that are suitable even for the dog. And this happens
Okay, but I'm going to pick your brain on this. Okay, so you've
My
just
brain.
said that we birthed the children there, but they're not technically mine. But you have your own way of parenting your children. You have your own style. You might do the gentle parenting or you might do the traditional parenting, whatever suits you, whatever floats your boat. I choose a mix of the two depending on my mood.
On the day.
on the day. But if your partner, who is not the biological dad of the child, decides to implement his style and you don't agree with it, would you say that? Or would you say, well, he's choosing to care for my child. I'll let him parent him the way I want? Because that is hard. Because you can easily go up to him like, that's not how we do things in this
Listen,
house.
we had the situation, so don't think it's all
I think
rainbows and
everyone
sunshine.
has.
Even as husband
We had.
and wife, you have it.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely,
So
but-
of course, yeah.
But with your husband,
Yes.
there is technically a 50-50.
Yes, you're right. And it's...
but your partner who is
a
not
bit
their
more-
biological child, there is that awkward conversation. I don't
think
know.
it depends on the level of communication you have. I didn't experience this with the father of my children, and I have been blessed to experience this with my partner. So I guess it's not about who is biologically and yours and mine and this. I think it's the level of communication that you build is what brings that. And we have had these situations. Of
course.
I mean, we're dealing here with ages 14, 12, 11,
Stage
and
of-
8.
in my opinion.
So,
Well,
you
the
can-
hormones are starting.
Exactly.
My
so you
daughter's
can
turning
imagine.
12, and yes.
And you have to deal with it differently according to the age. So, yes, you would have these situations and you would discuss them. And you might also need to correct them.
Yes.
And one thing that you learn in parenthood, that it's okay to make mistakes. I do go up to my children and say, listen, I am sorry, you were right there. It was my mistake.
Yes.
For sure.
this is something that we might have grew in an environment that the parents are always right. Because
Yes,
you're
yes.
the parent, you know it all. And no, it's not the case. I am vulnerable enough to say in front of my children, listen, here, I did a mistake. And you are right, and I need to correct it.
And sometimes a different parent style teaches you also about you. For example, yes, about I am quite a gentle parent, but sometimes you learn that the other person brings along some discipline, you learn, I'm lacking this in my style, especially now that my daughter is growing older. She's turning into a teenager, and the difference is huge. She met Alex when she was like 9, and she was the kind, she comes, hugs him. Now she comes home, goes into her room, talks to nobody, and he says, doesn't she like me anymore? I said, Alex, she's growing up.
She's 12.
She's 12. This is exactly what happens, They go into themselves a little bit. It changes. It changes. Even with me, she hugs me. I go for a hug. She doesn't come for a hug anymore. And sometimes she jokes. She say, I love your daughter, but I don't have to like her all the time. And it's also true.
I say that about my kids sometimes.
I say to him directly, I love you, or I don't always like you.
Exactly.
It's sweet.
Our situation was a bit more tricky because since Diego is on the autism spectrum, it's another way of parenting. So he had to learn certain ways with him that, for example, some things that for him didn't make sense when we met at first, now they do make sense and he understands better the situation. So he had to learn certain ways. He brought his parenting style into the family. Obviously, we now have a more structured environment at home. And even, for example, I can use the phrase, let me call David. Because he's very disciplined. And it works, and I find it very useful. But yes, he had to learn as well. And it's something which again makes you fall more in love with the person, because when you see that this person has his own idea of parenting and he's trying really hard to understand, to learn, to adjust, and you say, Nistra, it's very nice to see. But then again, for example, I have to do my sacrifices as well. Because, for example, at times I don't agree with his decisions. And even though I don't agree, I choose to stick by his decision. And then when the kids are sleeping and we are alone, not in front of them, I tell him, Isma, do you think that what you did or what you said or the punishment you gave him, for example, and we discuss it out. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes he is right, because the mother is always a little bit softer, you know. And I think when it comes to Diego, I'm a little bit more protective. But whatever our recipe is, I think it's good because he improved a lot, even in his behavior and stuff like that. Definitely.
Something about the way you bounce makes me want to keep you around my mind, my mind, mind. Something about the way you sound shakes me up and makes me get down on my.
There's an element of control you automatically have to let go of, because I'm guessing your children will have access to their dads, so your ex-partners, you don't know their parenting styles when they're in that environment. And I assume in the early stages there's a bit of anxiety around, are they doing things their way? I've kind of worked really hard to get them on this schedule. We don't have chocolate for breakfast. We always do homework before watching telly. Is it hard to not get yourself in a spiral when they are not in your care?
Not really. I mean, even I used to do this even when it comes to my parents. I teach my children that every household has its own rules.
Okay.
So if, for example, at Nanna, you can eat on the sofa, that doesn't mean you can do it at home. So what happens at Nanna's house is under Nanna and Nannu's control. What happens here, we have different rules here. So if the child goes by rules that are bound to a household, and this comes from upbringing children, no matter what relationship you are
Yes.
in, no matter the dynamics, this is like school. The school has its own rules. You sit at your desk, you have your break time, and the bell rings and you eat. At home, I don't ring any bells.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So every household, every environment, every building, I would say, it could be whatever building it is, at church. We don't eat at church because in this place we worship, we do this. And so every building, every household has its own rules. And if we go by teaching children this in this way and manner, it doesn't mean whether you're with the mother, with the father, you go by the household rule. So if you are in the care of someone, you have to follow that household rule.
And you know what? What you're saying is, I believe, I'm not saying kids of separated parents have a plus, but what they have, maybe that other kids don't have, their sense of adaptation. Why? Because, for example, my oldest daughter has this amazing emotional intelligence. She gauges wherever she is, the room she is, or whoever she is, and she behaves accordingly. And I love that about her. So with her dad, she has a different role. She kind of, how can I say? She tries not to. With me, she's more comfortable. With her dad, she's a little bit more scared because maybe she doesn't see him often. But somehow it works, as you said. So even at my mom's place, she follows her rules. And she understands that's her rules. And she doesn't discuss them or try to say, but it's not fair. And yes, they have. So
they do it from child.
And it's very
from
good
childcare
because
to
in society then, in the larger picture, life is going to be like this all the time.
Exactly.
Place of work, friends. No, you have to literally
Let
almost
go.
be not a chameleon, but yes, you have to change a little bit
Yes.
according to where you are, to adapt, to behave according to the place. And emotional intelligence, I believe, is cultivated. And for sure, for sure my daughter gained this for sure. And I like that about her a lot. So what you say is for sure true.
Because it's something that we so much, as I said, this has been a learning curve, but it's also an opportunity for growth. And some things are so basic, yet we need to define them. They are so basic.
Yes.
The school has its rules, my house has its rules, your house have your rules. So why do I have to go about, because with their dad they do this and with me they do that? Why? Why do we need to? Each building has its own rules and you just follow that, and that's life.
Yes.
You're going to go into work.
And kids are so resilient
They
and
are very
so
resilient.
adaptable. And especially in your circumstances where your separation has happened while the children were relatively young, it's quicker, isn't it, for them to just switch from
And they
one.
teach you a lot. My kids taught me a lot. I always say they have been my biggest teachers. And when people used to tell me, you're investing a lot of time in them, but you need to go out and you need to do this and you need to do this. And you know what? I would say, this is where I need to be right now.
Yes.
Right now, this is where I need to be. Maybe in 5 years' time, maybe in a week's time, my life will be different. But right now, this is where I need to be. And I want to learn, I want to grow, and I want to grow where I fit at the moment.
Do you feel like maybe after your separation you were a little bit anxious about what life would look like, with finding love or not finding love? I'm sure your first priority after your separation wasn't finding love, but and maybe in hindsight you look back at how resilient your kids were and how they helped you almost get through it. Maybe the fear was bigger than what actually happened, because I'm sure, when you originally met your the father of your children, you probably weren't thinking about separation and divorce, and then life happens. And so you probably left that relationship with a bit of fear of the unknown, what's to come. But now looking back on that, do you feel like that fear shouldn't have been there? Because
I think fear is
Very
part of the
normal.
lifestyle. So fear is very normal. And where does fear come from? Fear comes from our hesitation for change.
Yes.
And change is the only constant. So if you want to remain relevant, you have to change and evolve. And sometimes the way you evolve in life, you lose even friends. We never discuss this. Sometimes you evolve in life and you lose certain friends. I used to meet you every week, and now you have a lifestyle. I have a lifestyle. our
Motherhood
lifestyle.
changes your friends, changes everything.
Do you ever fear that you're going to lose a friend? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So fear is part of life. So yes, unfortunately, you have to embrace it. But change is also important, and change is your only constant. So are you ready to evolve? Are you ready to change? Are you ready to move along? So it could be family members. If someone is not accepting your change, your move, then you have to let them go, because they'll be sucking out of you the energy and keeping you back. And I think this boils down to all relationships, not only people who are married or separated. If there is no ability for growth, if you are not growing with me, if we're not heading in the same direction, if we're not growing together, if we're not evolving together, then I'm going to have to remain where I am, and one of us is going to be stuck. So are we going to evolve together? You could be losing friends along the way. You could be losing partners along the way. But are you moving on? Because it's ultimately, we are born alone, we will die alone. And that's another truth. So we need to evolve.
I think just because you are giving life another shot, it doesn't mean it could have been your first marriage and you experienced the fear of losing the family. I experience this feeling a lot, because sometimes I look at where I was and I look at where I am now, and I say, Marelli, what a huge difference. I don't know how I used to live before. I don't know how I pulled through all those things, all those situations. Today I lead such a calm life.
As calm as 3 kids will let you be. But you are at peace.
Yes, but I'm at peace. I'm comfortable in my own home. I feel safe. I wake up in the morning. Okay, there's the chaos of getting the kids ready and out for school, but that's it. I don't have other worries. I don't have other trouble other than that. And yes, I fear that I lose the family I have now, but it's not because it's my second relationship or he's my second partner or husband or whatever. It's because sometimes when you are in a good place, and I think it's very important that we fear the thought of losing someone, it's important to feel that fear as well, because it keeps us in check. And, you don't take things too much for granted. Sometimes I say, Lahwa, I am lucky, I am blessed that I have this man, that he loves my son, if I can say mine. Go ahead. As if he was his biological dad. We built this beautiful family. I have a fear of losing all this, and sometimes we discuss it between each other. I tell him, do you imagine, for example, if something happens and we have to split up? And sometimes I joke about it. For example, I tell him, I leave Utah, so you have the kids for the weekend. And I have some time to rest, for example. In reality, it's something I fear. It's something he fears as well. But I don't think it's based on the fact that it's our second relationship.
No, because it's a good relationship. That's why.
That's why. Yes.
And I relate a lot to this. I never thought I could be in this place, because obviously when you come from maybe, I don't know, broken relationships, obviously you have this disillusionment that that's it, I'm never going to have a good relationship
all the relationships
again.
are
And
the
then all of a
same.
sudden someone comes along and maybe finally have the relationship you've always wanted, or you'd never even thought you'd have, but it's here. And of course you're going to have a fear that you might lose it. And yes, the fear comes from having something that's worth kind of fighting for, So I relate to this. Yeah, I have this fear, but it's not a fear constant at the back of my mind all the time. It's a fear that keeps you in check. And even if there's an argument, maybe in my previous marriage, I maybe now I know what I want. I know what I want in a relationship. I know what I deserve. So even when I have an argument, I try to be, kind of mature about it and address it as maturely as possible, not to do any damage to the relation. That kind of fear that keeps you in check. Yes, so you're careful, kind of thing, how to relate to the other person. You respect the other person maybe more than you respected your other husband, not because you didn't respect him, but because now you know better, kind of thing.
Yeah. I have been so inspired by like your strength, your resilience, but how much you have learned in a weird way almost, because you loved and lost and loved again. You have gained more experience, more maturity than maybe some others. Well, also depends on how you look at things. But if you had to look back on your journey, is there one thing you wish you could tell that person from, I don't know, when the marriage broke down or whatever? Is there something you wish you could go back and say to that person? And if you had to give advice to someone who maybe has just had their marriage broken down or is on the verge or is staying because of the kids. Because again, as mums, and this is a show for mums where I really want to target the difficult conversations, and there are mums who are there and staying because of the kids. Is there anything you would say?
I won't give advice directly on that, but I just want to share something because I was one of those people. And that was one of the things that I had to go through. So I remember saying it so clearly that I'm going to stay for the children, that I know the person who I said it to, who was my sister, and I know where I was parked, and I know the place. So I remember saying this so clearly that I'm going to stay for the children, that when then I did it, I had to do it because of the children. So the same reason I didn't want to do it then became the same reason that I had to do it. I knew that was the circle. Because I remember me so clearly wanting to stay for the children. So when it came on that then I took the decision because of the children, I said, oh, wow, am I the same person who wanted to stay because of the children? And now I'm moving away because of the children, because I didn't want to give them this environment. Children are able to see and to assess. And I'm no therapist, so I don't know the age. I'm no psychologist, so I don't know how this happens, but children can assess very well. And I have figured out, I don't want to take us back to the introduction, but with this like and not like thing, I can almost see it clearly that my children, although obviously they would like the person in the sense of liking, because they, as I said, they can make their own choices. I also strongly believe that they like or not like a person based on how they see me acting, reacting, and feel.
Yeah.
And this is something we haven't mentioned. So I really believe this, I live this, and I can see how they react, so they can assess if the person gives me peace, if the person loves me, if the person cares for me. And in return, they are fed off that as well. And I think this is super, super clear. I lived it and I can say it clearly, is because of how I feel around the person, how I act. So the sort of person, how I speak, how I live, that all comes through my environment. So that is why our environments are very important. It's not a relation and a question of partner or this, even where I am. So it could be, for example, that I am unhappy at work. If my children are seeing me coming back home, always unhappy at home from my job, they're going to think that growing up and working is really boring and it's really unhealthy. And I never gave them that. And I associate this because every day they tell me, Ma, I want to be like you. But at the end of the day, I do so many things that they don't know exactly what I do.
But they say that because
But
they see you happy.
They see me going to work happy. They see me having the opportunity of being allowed to do different jobs. And one time I'm interviewing this or him or that, or one time I'm doing an advert and the other time I'm... So they want to do my job because they see me happy, but at the end of the day, they don't even know what I do.
I think the ultimate goal of a parent is to have a happy child and then a happy adult. And I think one of the strongest tools that we can give our children is the tool of change, adaptation, and the fact that if something doesn't make you happy, you can walk away from it. And I think that is a lesson that you cannot give at school or by reading books. So when they see that you are, because at the end of the day, it affects you, the relationship, your home, the sense of, I don't know, if the home is tense and you cannot relax and you cannot feel safe in your own home. And I'm not, when I say safe, doesn't necessarily mean that you are experiencing domestic violence. I mean, safe that you can express yourself the way you want, I don't know, talk the way you want, eat the way you want. So if there is the lack of the safety at home, what's the sense of it all? Can you call it a home? And I think that is one thing that there are a lot of negatives, obviously, that come out from a separation, but one big positive is the fact that you are giving your kids this tool that, listen, you are the master of your own life, and if something is not good for you, it's okay to walk away from it. And I think that is something that as a mother made me feel more at ease. And now looking back, I say, even in the way I talk to my child, in the way I speak to him, in the way I reason with him, it's completely different. I'm calmer. I mean, I shout a lot. I'm calmer. I reason things better.
Yes.
And for example, a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, used to tell me, Isma, you don't correct your son for certain behaviors, for example, because your mind is already filled up with thoughts that are next to, for example, your child eating with his hands, not with the cutlery, for example. You let him eat with his hands. You don't tell him nothing. Why? Because the problems you have at home are so much bigger that this is nothing. And I didn't understand it back then. Now I understand because I have more time to focus. My mind is at rest. And I have more time and energy to focus on these things which are important as well when raising kids. So I feel that I am giving a better version to my son as well, apart from me being happier, which leads him to being even happier.
I would say the same thing. You're allowed to walk away. And that for me was the realization that it was painful in a way to get there, to realize that someone tells you, listen, it's okay to walk away. And I had to hear it from someone else. And then I remember taking this deep breath, and obviously it's a journey. I mean, okay, you decide to walk away that day, but it took me years to come to a place where Sefora is saying exactly, yes, to be a good parent, it's not easy. Now I'm finally having this space where, as she can say, you can focus on being a good parent and focus on the little things that deserve attention. I think this is the first year where I feel really, really grounded. I'm not a perfect parent, but even I see my daughter, she's more focused at school. So imagine, it took me. So if I had to give maybe some advice to other parents who are going through this, be a little bit more present. Because maybe I wasn't always. I had these moments where I'm thinking too much about the future. So, and we are enough. This is something that I always struggled with. I always felt I wasn't enough. But we are enough. But it's a journey. I'm not saying I'm enough right now, but
It's a journey.
I'm enough. And I hope mummies, I can speak to mummies, I cannot speak to fathers because I'm a mummy. You're enough. And if you want to walk away, you can be enough for your kids. All kids need a mom and a dad, yes, but you're still enough.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This has been very special for me. Thank you.
Thank you.